You can see what Spectrum Data Publisher pushes to OI. So the blue ones highlighted are introduced in the recent releases. Yeah, so that's the difference from the last support enablement training. So from SDP, when I refer SDP, it's a Spectrum Data Publisher. Yeah, just for your information. So from 21.2.4 onwards, we support services. Yeah, so we'll go in and the further slides will explain which feature is supported in which version. Let me get into the next slide. Yeah, so this is the updated compatibility metrics. So it's a simplified version basically. So earlier when we presented, it was 21.2.1 was the latest Spectrum Data Publisher then. So now we have completed 21.2.2, 21.2.4 and 21.2.6 NetOps releases along with Spectrum Data Publisher release as well. So we recommend a customer using a 21.2.x Spectrum version. So they can use Spectrum Data Publisher 21.2.6, or if they continue, if they are already using 21.2.4, they can continue using that. So with the DXOI SaaS as well as on-prem 21.x OI releases. Similarly, if the customer is on 10.4.2.x and 10.4.3.x Spectrum releases, they can use Spectrum Data Publisher 21.2.2. Okay. So if the customer is still on DXOI 20.2.x, which is not having which does not support the single ingestion endpoint and many other recent features in OI, so they have to use Spectrum Data Publisher 10.4.2.2 version. Yeah, so one point to note is the services data should be enabled in Spectrum Data Publisher only when Spectrum version is greater than or equal to 21.2.4, because that has the relevant Spectrum changes. So yeah, so if they are on older Spectrum version, they can continue using 21.2.4, but the Spectrum services should not be enabled. Alarm filtering option should be enabled only when Spectrum version is greater than 10.4.2x. So that's specific to the last column. Like, yeah. So if they are using DXOI 20.2.x, so they cannot use alarm filtering feature. Yeah. So DXOI year release is not recommended. So coming to the latest slide, coming to the next slide, what's new in Spectrum Data Publisher 21.2.2. So from in 21.2.2, we have supported the the service account was deprecated, and we used the same OI ingestion endpoint. That's a single configuration from 21.2.2 onwards for reading the alarms using OI token. So there's no need to configure a separate OI URL. So we use the same ingestion endpoint. That's a great move from OI. So it makes the configuration easy. But yeah, that requires the Ol Tenant Token to be passed on to the Spectrum Data Publisher. So yeah, so we'll see how to get the Ol Tenant Token in the next slide. So along with alarm search path is changed to the way we fetch the alarms from OI is changed as per the OI team's recommendation. So that's what it is. So this path is changed in OI SaaS and their latest on-prem release. Also, it is available. Yeah, so in case the customer was using OI agent token in the earlier versions of SDP, so when they upgrade, they need to reset the connector using run.sh reset command and input tenant token to make the reconciliation work. So if the alarm reconciliation disabled, I mean, we need not do that, but yeah, so it is recommended to enable it and reset the configuration. Next comes the cross launch to NetOps portal. So this is again a requirement came. If customer wanted to launch NetOps portal directly from OI alarms view, so from the Spectrum alarm in OI, they can either launch NetOps portal or one-click web app based on the configuration. So we'll get into that, how to configure. Then comes the enhanced exception handling. This is something which was already demoed during 21.2.1 itself, quoting the upcoming release exceptions handling. So how to get an OI tenant token? So this is, though, I mean, it is already part of the Spectrum Data Publisher documentation. However, I have listed here just to make it easy for the support for quick access. So if the OI is SaaS or on-prem, so it is installed along with the APM, then they can see this particular link, generate security token page in APM documentation. So if they are using DXOI on-prem, and if APM is not available, only OI is installed, then they can refer this particular link using the master admin account. They can enable that. They can create the tenant token. So currently, if the customer is on DXOI SaaS and APM is not available, so right now they need to contact Broadcom support to obtain a tenant token. But however, OI team will be rolling out a support to create a tenant token in the upcoming SaaS push. So this is the exception handling in 21.2.2. So this was already demoed during the earlier presentation. So we currently from 21.2.2 we support all the kind of errors from Jarvis. So there's no stopping the Spectrum Data Publisher. So we continue to either run the heartbeat or retrieve the synchronizations. So if we see any these specific error codes, so we SDP retrieves the operation, I mean running operation at max 20 minutes. So it can hold data at max 20 minutes. So if the Jarvis or if the OI side endpoint continue to throw errors beyond 20 minutes, then there could be data loss, I mean alarms data loss, so beyond 20 minutes. But otherwise, yeah, so if it comes up, we did not see that scenario yeah, in the last 2 years, but yeah, so just that's an information. Yeah, so otherwise, so in some cases, so we continue to run heartbeat. So when the heartbeat success, we start again publishing the alarms. Yeah, so in case of IO exceptions, we handle like we stop the ongoing sync and start heartbeat. Yeah, so then comes the 21.2.4. So from this release, started supporting publishing Spectrum services to DXOI, and along with the publish connector health and metadata information also to DXOI. So you can see the SDP sends its the connector information as well as its source, means here one-click status to OI. It pushes to TAS endpoint, as well as there are some metrics like whenever alarms and topology data pushes to OI, so the date this particular metrics get pushed to DXOI. So to be visible in the DX dashboards, you can see a sample screenshot here. So there we can see the alarms or inventory added count and deleted count and delta count and total count for every push. When the ingestions are stopped, it will show after a while it shows the ingestion status is inactive. Otherwise, it will show it as active. Okay, so when the Spectrum Data Publisher is stopped for some reason, so it will not push any data. But right now, OI has not implemented anything to show it as read or something. So that's there in the I think OI's backlog. So health data gets pushes every 24 hours, and the TTL we are sending it as 2 multiplied by the that interval. So means 2 days as of now. Yeah, by default. So this is the recent release 21.2.6. So this is a new attribute supported in Spectrum 21.2.6 or getting pushed to OI. So in continuation to the services push in the previous SDP version, so we are adding these two new attributes as part of the alarms. Okay. Network services impacted as well as the network service probable cause. Then there is a provision to download the DXNetOps Spectrum Data Publisher installer from the DXOI SaaS. So that comes up with the pre-populated cohort ID, ingestion endpoint, and tenant token. Yeah, of course, in the encrypted form, cohort ID and tenant token comes in the encrypted form. So customers directly can download this from DXOI to make it easy for the configuration. So rest of the configuration like source configuration or any other, I mean, what data to be published that they need to configure manually. But yeah, so they need not search for tenant ID and tenant token or endpoint. It makes I mean it easy for customers to deploy. Yeah, so this is currently supported, as of now it is supported in DXY SaaS version. So installation, there's nothing different. So let me skip through the slides. When it comes to configuration, yeah, so the highlighted ones are the ones introduced. So the blue color ones got introduced in 21.2.2. So yeah, alarm reconciliation. So we'll have just the input as false or true. So we need to just enable. So there is no OI URL, need not enter any OI URL here. I mean, it's not there in the configuration itself. Here, the first one comes the NetOps URL. So if NetOps URL is configured, so by default, NetOps PC URL will be published as for the cross launch. Okay, so from OI, if you open the Spectrum alarm, so the cross launch takes you to the NetOps. So if this is not configured and the web app is configured, so by default web app link will be published. So if web app is also not configured, it defaults to the JNLP. The client JNLP gets downloaded, using which you can launch the Spectrum the client. If you look at these services and health metadata, so this is the one introduced later version. So services in 21.2.4 and health meta also in 21.2.4. When health metadata flag is set to true, we need a prerequisite config on SDP 21.2.4. In SDP 21.2.4, open health metadata config.xml, which resides in under config folder, and update the IDs, which is highlighted in the connector section as well as in the product section. Follow the example format. So you can start the Spectrum Data Publisher. So it starts pushing the health metadata. To simplify and make it a single file configuration, this particular ID configuration is moved to connector config.xml in Spectrum Data Publisher 21.2.6. So as you can see here, connector ID and product ID are pre-populated with default values. User can change as they wish. So in SDP 21.2.6, so connector config.xml is used to update the connector ID values. Point to note is, if a customer has configured health metadata in SDP 21.2.4 and when upgrade to 21.2.6, IDs need to be reconfigured in connector config.xml as they are not retained across files. So otherwise, a data is sent data is sent with default IDs. Yeah, please make sure to update it. This is again, there's no difference. If at all the communication is secure, so we need to import the certificates, the same as before. And this filter Spectrum alarms push to OI configuration also is there's no difference. Let me skip through. Yeah, so starting the service, yes, you can see here. So this is a latest screenshot. So where it will not be prompted for any service account details, and it clearly prompts for OI tenant token. Yeah. So next comes the troubleshooting. So I've retained the troubleshooting scenarios which we have discussed in the last training. So yeah, so here blue colored logs are newly added along with the latest features. Yeah, so these are the new things added with the recent experience. Yeah, so OI URL validation fails with 401 unauthorized error in. So you can see the unauthorized error in SpectrumDataPublisher log. So this is basically, yeah, so as we changed, I mean, we are not no more using the DOI URL for OI URL. So we are using the same ingestion endpoint, which work with the tenant token. So if at all the customer has customer is still using agent token or accidentally provided agent token for tenant token, so we may end up with 401 unauthorized error. So in that case, they just need to reset and configure tenant token, start the SpectrumDataPublisher, so which fixes the problem. Yeah, next one is OI URL validation fails with 500 internal server error. So yeah, so this is specific to just OI URL validation fails. That case, you can go to this KB article. So where it explains about changing URL in OI. So changing some URL in OI. So DXOI fails to process empty values for array attributes. So in case connector sends empty values for array attributes currently, so I think they are getting not processed, and the further alarms getting stopped. They're not getting synced. So though OI is working on the fix, so until it is available, so the temporary workaround is you can remove such attribute from connector configuration, DOI config.xml, and then start the STP. So that SpectrumDataPublisher doesn't push that data to OI.